Okay, so we're gonna have a quick go at retopologizing Josh's high poly, because he was struggling, and it's a good demo for everyone who's struggling with high to low stuff. It's got a lot of polygons, so it's taken a while to load. Come on, Maya. For some reason this piece is way up there. I'm not sure why. We can just move it down. This material is kind of confusing. Just going to turn the transparency off. It's easier for us to see. Lightness. God, that's dense. Shouldn't matter, it's just going to be kind of laggy to work with an 8 million polygon object. Okay, so this one is different. Am I stupid, or is one of these higher than the other? Yeah, it is. It may make sense for us to retopo 1, duplicate the low poly round. If this one is too much bigger, we'll just remove it, and it's much easier if you keep things symmetrical, guys. Much easier. But yeah, let's have a go. So delete history for these transformations, because this is really a big mesh. I'm going to ungroup everything. So what are we going to bake as one piece? Probably all these trims. These gems can probably just be baked onto the trim. And the same here. Okay, let's make a start. Why? Keep things on the world 0 if you can. Keep things symmetrical if you can. Shit. God, it's so laggy. Come on. So how many divisions? Probably 18 is a good place to start. We know this is 12. Let's go with 16. We know we're doing things in a 4-sided manner on this. It has 2 planes of symmetry. So let's go with a power of 2 number, like 16. Jesus. I don't know what you've done here, Josh, but you don't need this ridiculous density of polygons. I guess you have used remesh on it for some reason, but it's so high. It does not need to be that high. But operations like snapping are lagging a bit because there's just so many polygons it's trying to deal with. Trying to think, how can we represent this shape in as few polygons as possible? I think something like this will work. One bevel on the bottom. Bevel on the top. Okay, there's our base. Now I would just delete edges on the bottom, but it's triangulated for some reason. We could try and quadrangulate. No, seemingly didn't do anything. So once again, we're going to have to just copy the shape by hand. Let's go with 16 sides again. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be close enough. Make sure it's tucked in so we can't see seam underneath. It really is difficult to work with snapping when there's this many polygons in the scene. Trying to figure out how few loops we can use on this part. Something like that. One more up here. Really do want to keep it as minimal as possible. We'll see if we need more up here later. but it's going to kind of be tucked under the cork. I think we probably will need another one. Save this quickly, because I feel like there's a high chance it's going to crash with all these polygons. So, the lid, really easy shape. It's going to be another cylinder. "16 sides again. Hoping we can save a few polys there by tucking it straight in. So we got the main It's impossible. Okay. 700 polygons so far. Probably need a few more edges here, but it's a good start. So what are we going to combine? This is a good point to save and delete history, because I tested slightly, and combining these 3 million polygon meshes can cause some problems. I want to reiterate, you shouldn't get your mesh this high. Maya really isn't designed to handle this number of polygons efficiently. ZBrush could. Maya can't. Woohoo, we did it. Okay, that's one piece. Let's combine all these together. So I'm going to combine the gems and just bake them on, and then we'll use the ID map to color them. But hopefully these combine operations are successful. Always deleting the histories afterwards. Try and prevent too much lag. Oh, you've keyed something here. Oh, I can't remember how you unkey it now. If you see red numbers in the attribute editor, it means you've keyed a transform. Let me just double check. Maya remove keyed transforms. There's a hotkey. I'm not sure exactly what you've pressed. I mean, it doesn't seem to be affecting our workflow. Keys, delete keys, that works. Some operations you'll try and do on a mesh that you've accidentally keyed, and it will say you can't do it because there's an incoming connection. Okay, so far so good. Save again, just to be sure. Going to use a torus for this outside piece. Big radius, 16 axis divisions, 4 height divisions, 45-degree twist. Oops. I'm just going to tweak the radius, section radius, until we have something close to what we want. And I'm going to scale it by hand. Pretty close already. So, object mode. Please select the correct object. Thank you. Going to bevel these. I could do 1/4 and duplicate it round, but honestly, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Going to grab the face, double click select all of those faces. Now we have 4 component selections that are separate from each other. If we go to our move tool and go to tool settings, if we set the axis orientation to component, it's going to snap to one of those components. But you can see that it does the same operation on all of them. Actually, we want to scale on the component. Maybe not even. That's what I was looking for. Scale them all the way in. I'm really trying to save polygons here because we know the parts that are going to eat up all the polygons are the little engraving parts, right? So we want to be as optimal as we can everywhere else, so we can spare some polygons there to get a good result on the details that are, like, you know, key to the look of the piece. So I'm just going to weld all those last 2, and then merge all the verts, because we know we had double verts along the top where I beveled those edges in. Something ain't right. Still 2. There we go. It jumped down to 120, so we know the merge worked that time. I can select the loop, so we're all good. Change my pivot point back to object. Scale this down. Because I haven't, God, it's so hard to select. Because I haven't done just one quarter, I do have to make sure that every operation I do, I go around to all four sides and do it the same on every side. Make sure we're scaling on object. Bring it out a tiny bit just to capture that detail. Hopefully this should all bake on. Okay. I think we are going to need some geometry for the gem. There's no two ways about it. In this case, I think it is time to delete 1/4, or 3/4, I should say. And just work on one. I'm going to save again, just in case. So I put an edge loop all the way around. A bevel here. I guess if I could select the correct object, please. Turns out the gem is not exactly central, unless... No, my extrude tool was set to world. Let's just make sure everything's on world axis. Yeah, it's not central. Not to worry. We'll figure out how to get this nice and low in a sec. Right now it's mostly about matching the geometry we have. Can we circularize that? Not bad. So here's what I think we do. Of those. Just going to figure out how we can get this as low poly as possible. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all quads, triangulated up here. Pretty good. Just move this part by hand to get it to match position of the gemstone. Snapping the pivot to the middle. Make sure my step snap is on something that divides into 360 easily. 5 is good enough. Please tell me all the gems are in the same place. They are. Fantastic. Mesh combine. Edit mesh. Merge. Where are we sitting right now in terms of poly count? 400 for that part. Pretty good. 1,000 total. And that looks like that should be enough to bake. So we've got loads of polygons left for the tricky bits. Let's do this piece quickly. Shouldn't be too challenging. Probably don't even need 16 on this one. Let's go down to 12. Because it's narrow. Let's delete the interfaces. So we just have this ring. You can probably see what I'm going to do here. Oops. Don't want the top. Just want these parts. Just going to try and match that silhouette as much as possible. Oops. Gonna go here, edge ring utilities and split, and split, and split, and split. Vertex, 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 vertex. Move them up, move them in, move them outwards. Not exactly symmetrical again, I think, but shouldn't be a big problem. God. Don't make 8 million polygon meshes in Maya, please. It's because I didn't mean to select the high poly, but now I have the multi-cut. It's trying to figure out what all the verts are. Drop the tool and it's fine. Make sure I only have this one selected and select multi-cut. Negative scale. Let's put one down here. One here. And another one over there. Scale it out and down. Gonna bridge this. Turned out pretty good. Getting rid of some unneeded polygons. Like so. Oops. $200 for that piece. I feel like it could be a bit lower, but whatever. Now the fun part begins. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be very tricky. So let's group everything up from the low. So that's our low poly right now. Looking pretty good. We can weld these if we need to save it even more, but hopefully we don't. We could also delete some faces on the inside of the low poly parts. So I'm going to hide everything else. Just wondering the best way to approach this. I was thinking about quad draw, but actually I just think it's going to be easier to do it by hand. Let's say that. Maybe not. Let's use quad draw. Make live. Modeling toolkit, quad draw. It's going to be tricky because this part specifically has a lot of gaps, and I think it's going to be best to just actually have geometry there and just bake, like have a simpler geometry underneath it. We'll see how it turns out. The end of this process. Otherwise, it might be a case of using masked planes for it. Try and get the edge flow to match the shape of the pattern. Going super low poly for now, but we know that we have more polygons to spare. Can't bevel that. was trying to remove the parts that are really important to the silhouette. We can add geometry here as we need. You know, poly count allowing, obviously, to sell this. But it is tricky. This is probably the hardest part of the model. Connect components on it. So we're at 68. Okay, I'm gonna call that good enough for now. Just extruded it. This part is causing trouble on the extrusion. Using local translate, not thickness, gives a better result. Now, no way of knowing exactly how this is going to bake, so we'll have to find out when we actually come to baking. extruding the back as well. So on local translate. Be interesting to see how this part bakes. Okay. Do we even need that part? That's very low. 196. We might need to add more to that to get a good bake. But as a starting point, I say we go with it. See how it turns out. Trying to keep this as slow as possible, obviously. I'm just trying to match up any parts that don't seem like they're quite close. Oh, I think that may indeed bake okay. Took a long time, but let's see how. Let's see whether the mesh is symmetrical. Mesh mirror on the object on X. Kind of. Just offset it. I can just move the part later, honestly. To add another loop on that side. $700. We're at 2,000 polygons with this setup here. We just got to get these details done in under 3,000. I think that's doable. So let's do exactly the same thing again. Going to select everything apart from the parts I want to work on and hide them. Now we know these aren't symmetrical for some reason, but they are all the same mesh. So we should just be able to make one low poly, duplicate it 4 times, and then scale it by hand to fit the point we need it to. So let's go. Make live. Modeling toolkit quad draw. Just going to save again. Never save too many times. Remember, we're not worried about triangles. It's not being animated, so it's going to make sense to have a triangle in there. Similarly, here, we can just link all that up as triangles. Where's that edge? There we go. Can't get that vertex out of there. Oh, there we go. You can always edit your mesh and then go back into quad draw. So select this one again, make live. Back in quad draw. Oh, I didn't turn make live on, my bad. Make live, select this one, quad draw. There we go. Quad draw requires a live mesh to work properly. Keeping our quad there, because we know we're going to need something to link up to. One, two, three, four. See, once again, keeping a quad. This way we can link to here, down to here. Like I said, we're not fussed about tries in our final result. We are fussed about tries whilst we're still using the quad draw tool. It's called quad draw for a reason. We start adding tries everywhere, it's going to get really difficult to use. So this should probably be a triangle, but make it a quad for now. Clear dots. Dot was in the wrong place. There we go. So sometimes the camera angle is playing a big role in whether you can actually link up your dots. What's going on there? exactly the same as last time. Not really a traditional quad draw workflow, but it's kind of what we need to do here. Hopefully we can just delete all these edges. Do a quick poke face. Very nice. We basically don't need any geometry on here, just the very most basic shapes. Once again, we can use triangles here. We're not worried. Just trying to save polygons. Just taking the time, manual retopo here. Try and get this as close as possible before I mirror. But obviously that's going to be the next step. Basically as we did on the other side. That's not enough detail there, so I'm going to add quick edge loop in. bring this edge in here and extrude this one. Oops, misclick. Extrude to this one. Getting there. Sort out this part before I do that. Just simplifying it because it's a really fine detail. I think simplifying it something like this is going to make it a better bake. I'm just trying to match the edge flow here. Saving polys at every chance we get. Just keep spinning the camera to make sure I'm moving stuff in the right direction. It's hard to tell when you're using the world axes. Cool. There may be more tweaking to do on this piece, but we will call it a day for now. I think we need to link this to here, link this to here. Should be able to. I wanted to bring this part out, but actually it's fine. It's close enough, I think. I'm going to mirror it on the world 0 on the Z. Should have a result like this. Just a bit of manual cleanup here and there. And on the underside as well, to make sure that it looks good, but still is as low poly as we can get it. If we move this part down, it's basically thickening the back. Pretty close. Where this is not symmetrical, as in the high poly is not symmetrical, so we have to do a little bit of adjustment. Try and get it as close as possible. Down. Maybe another loop is needed on the back there. Thicken that out a bit. I'm going to call that done. 400. Let's check the rotation in the channel box. It should be on -90. Pretty good. And again, this one's higher. And again. So for all of these, basically all the parts, it's going to be a job of just soft selecting the verts, moving them into as good of a position as we can to match the high poly. Let's see. Grab everything in the outliner, Shift H to unhide, de-isolate. Just gonna grab everything, delete history for these transformations, delete those sets. That's our entire low at 4,000 polygons right now. And all we need to do is add the part on top. And hopefully this will be bakeable. So like here you can see, definitely going to need to do some adjustment on some of these parts. But it's easy enough. Just grab the verts either in normal mode or in soft select mode. Start matching high to low. Do the same here. So if the bake comes out badly, I should say, the time is going to be spent just adjusting this stuff we already did. Like so. In general, it's looking pretty good. There's a few little areas for improvement. To do the heart normally, like why does this have 3 million polygons? To do the heart normally I would duplicate it and delete edge loops. Obviously it's been remeshed to within an inch of its life. So we're going to have to just make a new one, probably by extruding. Let's save whilst we still can. I think the minimum sides that looks adequate for a round shape is 5 if you're going to bake. If you have a square-sided shape, the angles are too acute to bake curvature onto them. So never try and bake rope onto a cube. It's never going to look good. Or rope or wire or whatever. Anything round. 5 sides is good enough. And you know it's 0 point. Well, only a tiny bit more expensive. I don't know the exact value because it's exponential, right? The more axis cuts you have, the more polygons your number of sides equates to. So hopefully this is symmetrical. I believe it is. So we should be able to and delete the faces on the end. It's much easier to work with just the edges in this case. So I'm going to grab edge mode, deselect these edges. And we've got 1,000 polygons left to work with, but I don't want to use them all here. I'm sure there's going to be places that when we bake, that's going to need more. Going to have to come back and add bevels and stuff, so we want to give ourselves a little bit of leeway. But I'm trying to do this, trying to find a good balance between polygon density and like actually capturing the curvature. We could also have drawn a curve in 2D, extruded along it. Really up to you. And something like that. Adding bevels where needed to add a bit more curvature. Pretty happy with that. Gonna look around the shape and see if there's any edges that seem like they're not actually contributing to the curvature of the heart shape. In this case, I don't think there are any. We've kept it really low from the start. If anything, I might add one more loop here Move this one along. My axis orientation for move tool is set on world. So it doesn't matter which way the object's pointing. Should always get a nice smooth movement in world space. Oops. I was moving just one edge there. Foolish. Okay. Happy with that. 150 polygons. Pivot to the middle. Delete history. Mesh mirror on the X. There is details 1 low, details 2 low. Stick it in the group. Put it underneath. There's our low poly. 4,300. We could definitely add bevels. Maybe bevels to like the edge of this. Obviously, we have to decide carefully where we need them. And the way we're going to decide is by doing a test bake and see where the errors occur. So I'm going to delete history, freeze transformations, unlock normals, and soften edge. The shading will look weird in Maya, but we're going to bake onto that shading, remember. We need to name the high poly the same as the low. So we have base. Let's hide the low. Let's unhide the high. We should have base. Base high. Gonna put them in the same order, it helps me. Ring high. Bottle. Neck, that's this part. I've named it a bit differently to how Josh named it, but it's obviously your own preference. Top is stopper. I'm going to call it top. Top is below neck. And we've got details 1, which I need to check what it is. Let's call them okay. Details 1 is up, details 2 is low. Details 1 high, details 2 high, and heart high. So let's export the high. It's going to take a long time because it's got so many polygons. And then we're going to have to UV the low, but we've done enough UV lessons. I'm going to just do an automatic projection and hopefully it will be enough to bake it. We just got to let this run. And the low poly as Josh 2. Oh, let's do the UVs first. Quickly save. UV editing. Just going to quickly create automatic. And let's make sure glass is on one material. So let's assign Lambert 3 to the glass. And let's make a new Lambert actually, just so we can name it. Glass. We know the glass is red from the high poly. And we're going to select everything else. Assign Lambert 1 to everything else. Now, hopefully, if we go... Oh, we've gone this far. We may as well do the UVs, right? It's not going to take long. They don't have to be perfect. Let's hide the high. Unhide the low. Like I said, I'm not going to talk through this. You've seen enough UVs to last a lifetime, I should hope. And this low is nice and optimized. It really shouldn't be hard for us to get a good unwrap. Ah. Hmm. There's a lazy way. It would be better to do this carefully by hand. But we got a mix of triangles and quads. We can't select the edge loops. So I'm just going to cut the sides off. It would be ideal not to have a seam there, to be honest. Moves are messy, but they should be fine for now. Doing the same process here. Man. These need to cut somewhere. It would be ideal to cut them all in the same place and break them up into even-sized chunks, but Working with these kind of strips, it's kind of, doesn't matter, no one's going to see these seams. As long as there's enough seams on each one that we don't have any grossly long shells. And even cut there, it's probably a good place to cut every single one. As long as we just have a bunch of cuts around the edges. It's going to grab the shells which are the longest. They all seem fine. That one, it's very long. Do the same with the other decoration trim as well, makes an easier way of doing it. Super easy on this piece. Just going to cut there. And one radial one. Pick an edge, any edge. This one, because it's kind of under one of the things. 2 strips, easy peasy. Very nice. Could be some optimization done. These long shells. I'm assuming these corners are where it bends, so probably a good place to cut. Save space. So let's lay out the glass on one. Let's lay out everything else on another one. We are being limited by the size of this shell. So what we can do is just cut it in half again. So it's not filling up too much of our UV. Hopefully we'll get a better fill of the UV space this time. Much better, okay. I call that good enough. Delete history, freeze transformations, mesh display, unlock normals, mesh display, soften the edges. Josh, 2, 2, 3, 4, low. Save the scene, open Painter. Josh, too low. We do have an ID map. Let's do a quick test bake. Oops, didn't select the high. That would be an excellent start, wouldn't it? So we're going to definitely need to increase the cage. We're going to definitely need to bake by mesh name. But let's just test. I feel like it's going to be slow because it has to just load the mesh. In general, the density of the mesh doesn't increase the baking time. It doesn't matter how it sees the same number of rays, whatever happens. The density of the mesh does increase the time it takes to just load the mesh into Painter. Well, would you bloody look at that? That's not a bad start. So we're definitely going to need to increase the cage size. By increasing the cage size, we're going to start getting overlap. So we definitely need to make sure that we're baking by mesh name. We'll give it another quick bake. It should be quicker. Every time you do it, it should be quicker. And if it looks okay, which it seems like it is going to, really not bad. So there's going to be some loss of detail here, right? We have more polygons to spare. These are the places I would add them. After you've test baked, go back in, add a, like one. Let me get a brush and a paint layer. Add a triangle. Add triangles in here. Here, wherever you can see the most noticeable issues with the bake, be the place to add triangles. Something's wrong with the base. See these? Didn't see that earlier. Must have not selected them, maybe. Weird. They appear to be fine. Oh. Are they named wrong? Base high. Ah, capital H. Classic. That's annoying because it means I need to re-export the high. Same with the heart. High, 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 high. Let's quickly check. Oh, there's a problem with the lid as well. I was so distracted with everything else. Top low, top high. It's capital H as well. Once again. Now, I wouldn't even dare to soften edges on the high. Might be worth doing if you're willing to wait an hour for it. I've got to wait for that export. It's going to take a fair long while. Okay. I believe our export is done. So actually we don't need to change anything. We just need to do the bake again. But with making sure we reload the high. And it should work this time. It's just got to load the mesh. Starting to see the details on the top. Nice. All the bake has worked, so I'm going to run it again with anti-aliasing. And you can see because we kept the mesh colors on the high poly from the Lambert materials and we've used the map baking, it should be really easy to color the crystals. Even though there isn't like a UV border or geometry border on the edge of the crystal, the ID map should have printed onto our low poly the exact position of the crystals. And there's our bake with anti-aliasing. Few little errors here and there, but really not a bad result. Let's go to the textures. Let's grab everyone's favorite bronze armor. Well, actually, this was iron. All right, let's go with the correct materials. Yep, that's come up pretty nicely. I'm gonna add a white mask, add a color selection. Pick color, pick the gray. Oh. And then pick the red and have the red. Come on, how you do this now? Pick the red. Yeah. Add black to the red, mask out the red. There's our mask. I was just thinking, like, why don't we need to have white on the metal, but the metal's already in there. So yeah, this is where the errors are. Not the errors, but like the lowest level of detail. But you've still got like 800 polygons to spare on this, so... is there a crystal? Glass. Let's use my green glass. Add a black mask. Add a color selection on the gemstones. I'm just going to make them that's not material. There we go. That's probably as good of a result as we can get, but we are at 4,300 polygons. There's like 700 polygons to use to add detail. Probably to this is the most important part. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to upload this to YouTube for you guys to have a look at.